Hello, one and all. Okay, cool. Should be live. How are you doing? Welcome to the VR Gamescast. I'm Zeena. I'll be your host for today. And with me, as always, is the VR encyclopedia, Jamie Feltham.
Hello, I have COVID. I'm just going to get that out there right now. This isn't a joke. I legitimately have COVID, but I'm here to entertain you sleepily.
Yeah, that's the thing. This week was definitely and it was not going to go ahead really, but here we are. Jamie's got COVID.
Fit.
He's fighting fit.
I don't let no stinking virus rule my words. I will not be silenced.
Oh my god. We live in the same flat, so I think I had COVID, but I've also had my 2 jabs, so I just kind of felt a bit off for a few days.
I've had my 2 jabs. If you had your 2 jabs, remain vigilant. Wear a mask like this.
Just
like this.
Just FYI, like it just feels like a cold right now, doesn't it? You're not having the full, 2020 symptoms.
Yeah, no, I've had it since last Friday, so I'm not like right now. I'm not. I've been through it. I've been through the wars, as they say. I'm on the mend. I'd like to think.
And when you say the wars, it's just been sneezes and the snotties.
Sneezy wars. Yeah, that's a war though. It's a it's a battle. No one likes to sneeze.
No one likes to sneeze.
I'm sure some people love to sneeze, but yeah.
We're not alone, but thankfully you're not in the same room as Jamie. What's up, everyone in chat? Let's give some little shout outs. The Triangulator said, "Hey, illustrious VR community, happy to be here today. Cheers. We're happy to have you, and we're also happy to have Adam Hartzell, the absolute boy, who's here every week. There's Lucky Dude, there's Paradise DK, another absolute boy. D1360 VR. How are you doing? How are you all doing?
Thank you for the well wishes.
The well wishes right now.
That's very kind of you. I am on the mend. Yes, Triangulator, and I'm glad that glad to be here. And Daniel, that dog isn't keeping you awake. Not right now.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want to become a member, please do. You'll support our YouTube channel, and if you just want to hit us up with a super chat, go ahead. We love them. We are enthusiasts of super chats. Anyway, this week we've got about 4 VR stories to get through, and normally where we do reviews, we're going to give our impressions of A Township Tale, which has come to Oculus Quest today. Early access people could have played it for a couple days before, but yeah, we'll give our impressions. I saw up here, Adam Hartzell, you gave a pretty damning comment. Hot take: A Township Tale color palette is ugly. I don't agree with that at all.
I quite like the color palette, but it does have problems on Quest of the visual variety overall. But I think the color palette is quite good in terms of like making sure it's actually able to run on a standalone. I think that's kind of one of the choices there for that. But
if you're here for that conversation, stick with us till the end of the podcast. But yeah, let's get on with the news. Let's get on with it. Come on, boys and girls. Forget COVID. Forget everything. We're talking about VR news. Late last week, the sequel to Polyarch's much beloved debut, Moss, was announced. The reveal trailer for Moss Book 2, here she is. It's a she, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quill.
Quill, the female mouse warrior.
Yep. That's what she's known for.
Yep.
Anyway, the reveal trailer for Moss Book 2 took the first slot in Sony's State of Play event, which, going by the past year or so, is super rare. I mean, it's rare for VR to get in there anyway. So that was pretty awesome to, kick off the event with that. There haven't been any mentions for Moss Book 2 coming to PC VR or Quest yet, but the first game actually has consistently held high rankings in our top or best VR games lists across all platforms. So, you know, there's hopes there for other platforms, but right now, just PSVR has been announced. Jamie, you actually started playing Moss 1 recently, which, FYI, everyone, very rare for Jamie to have not played a VR game. Again, he is the VR encyclopedia. I'm going to make that a thing. But you've actually just played Moss for the first time.
Well, yeah, that was a game that David reviewed back in the day. So that was, I think it launched in like 2017, I want to say, maybe 2018. And Triangulator, yeah, you're right. It was exclusive to PSVR when it first launched back then as well. So it's one of those games that, along with a couple of other titles, has always been on my, like, when you have a free bit of time, go and catch up and play that. And, you know, fortunately, this was announced last week, and then, well, not fortunately, but having COVID, I had some free time, and so I spent an evening playing Moss earlier this week, which I was assuming it would take a couple of sittings to get through, but no, it turns out Moss is actually far shorter than I realized it was going to be, which is interesting because it's one of those ones that ends up, like, it's kind of escaped that criticism. Lots of I would have,
so
with how short it is, I would have expected to hear from other people how short it was, but I didn't really pick up on that before I played it, and then I did it in about 2.5 hours. Yeah,
that's interesting because I guess because this was like one of the firsts, right? Well, one of the earlier games. So it's interesting, you know, people commenting on the game back then versus now, like as if you'd played it for the first time right now. I suppose back in the day there were a lot more things that people could forgive, such as maybe the length or so on.
I think that's a good way of putting it, because it was, I remember when it came out, there was this kind of like burst of relief around it in this kind of idea of like, oh, we actually have something good to play, like really, really fun to play. Which was, you know, back then was kind of rare because it is a game of undeniable quality. Like, each and every environment is really, really lovely and detailed, and the puzzles are quite fun, and the platforming's pretty sharp too. So I think
to out you.
You're gonna just tell them I didn't really like it, aren't you?
Jamie didn't really like it. He kind of took off his headset and was like, "Oh, you know." But again, I think that's again through time and expectation and whatever. It's gone down through hype over years, right?
Well, exactly, and I think the thing is, you know, I obviously I played it after Astrobot, and Astrobot is the same concept, but with, you know, cleverer ideas for VR. I prefer a lot of the settings. I prefer the character and everything like that.
It's thicker,
so it's not that I didn't like it. It's just it really does feel like, it really did feel like the first act of one game, so much as, you know, its own entire thing. And so that's, you know, that's what I am hoping to see out of book 2 is hopefully something much more in the realms of like 5 to 7 hours rather than 2 to 3, and hopefully something that has a lot of ideas. The things I didn't like about Moss, and I don't know if guys and girls in chat will remember this, but some of the animations are quite played out. So when Quill pulls herself up from a ledge, that actually takes a good amount of time, and there's a couple of like platforming trials that you have to kind of get up over the ledge very, very quickly. And if you don't, like, you seriously damage Quill. And I found the timing on it really, really hard just because of how long this animation was playing out. So that was one of the weird things, I thought. And I'm hoping to see them kind of clean those things up. I thought there were some interesting things in the trailer, like that it looks like we'll end up using a new weapon, which is cool, like the hammer. And hopefully it looked like Quill might also get like special abilities that, like, if she raises her sword, you see in one point in the trailer, and you like touch the top of the sword, she does like a dash attack. So I'm hoping to see more from that, because the combat again is kind of on the weak side in Moss. It's just mashing square and maybe throwing some dodges in there. The thing is, this was one of those things where they announced it before at the State of Play. We knew they were going to announce it at the State of Play. We had the opportunity to talk to Polyarc before they announced it, and they were just kind of in that mode that lots of games do when they first announce, where you ask a question and they say, "Yeah, we're not really ready to talk about that quite yet," and so you're like, "Okay, great, it looks exciting. I want to know things like, is it out this year or next year?" I don't think it hurts to give people an idea of when to expect it to come out. If it is next year, I guess I wonder, is there a chance it's going to be a PSVR 2 game as well as a PSVR game, right?
Yeah, you definitely hope so with a lot of these newer titles that they've announced, like through their VR days and such. So, like I said, with Sony State of Plays, it's rare to actually get VR games in there. So, the fact that this is in there obviously shows that this might be, one of the bigger ones for them. But might also headline PSVR 2. Fingers crossed. Like, just through it being in State of Play, just complete,
yeah,
guessing.
Exactly. I mean, graphically right now, this definitely looks about what they achieved with PSVR, and I wouldn't, considering even whatever happens, even if it does come to PSVR 2, it's no doubt going to come to Quest 2 as well at some point, so you can't expect the graphics to really, really go beyond that. But yeah, I just hope we get to see a PSVR 2 version as well. That would be very, very interesting. Some of the new ideas in here do look cool. I'm well up for using a new type of weapon. One of the things I realized, playing Moss for the first time earlier this week, was more than anything else, it is a puzzle game. There, in which the combat and the platforming to some degree are elements that enhance the puzzling more than they are their own features of the game. So I'd really like them also to flesh out that platforming and flesh out that combat and make them their own core tenets. And then also, go explore more of what can be done with the story and the connection between you and Quill. I one of the reasons I hope that it's on PSVR 2 is because of that kind of using the DualShock 4 to interact with Quill and stuff. Like, I have a pretty good setup for my PSVR because I've used the thing for 5 years now, and I know how to get the best performance out of it. And still, even with that controller tracking is just troublesome. So I'm hoping to see a bit more out of that as well as we look forward to the sequel. My estimation would be that it's probably not coming this year. If it was coming this year, they probably would have just said it, right? There's like less than 6 months left in the year. So
you don't know if it might be a Christmas.
It might be. It might be, but it just seems strange. If it's coming this year, you want people to know it, right? You want to start driving up awareness.
It's so interesting looking at different games' marketing plans in terms of, like, do you announce it way ahead? Do you just surprise launch? Like, I think we're seeing way more varied kind of strategies there. So
yeah, and that's kind of something again that speaks to the difference between PSVR and Quest, right? Like, Quest is way more of that. Oh yeah, it's coming out next week. It's coming out the end of the month.
Yeah, very true.
And PSVR is very much the platform where you have your seasonal lineup of games that you reveal in a big surprise event beforehand. And yeah, this is like they've been doing with those VR days, like you said. Like, we've had 2 VR days that like prepared us for like a really cool summer of PSVR games, basically. Yeah, and that's what this is. So yeah, I'm excited. We'll see. I'm hoping we get a 2022 release alongside PSVR 2. That would be when I'd launch the game, personally. But what do I know?
Well, what do I know? Who knows? So yeah, people seem to be pretty positive about it. However, if I go up in the little comments, Go Green and Game On said, I platinumed this on PSVR, but only after being a freebie with days of play. It's a nice puzzler, but I don't need more of it. Essentially the same in a book 2 edition. So I don't think Go Green and Game On, which I love the name by the way, necessarily is very excited for this, which I can understand.
No,
if
I
platform
think
puzzlers aren't your thing.
I think they're kind of saying, yeah, exactly. I think they're kind of saying what I was saying of just, I hope we see more of those other tenants kind of fleshed out to stand on their own, not just stand in service of the puzzles, which is really what they did in Moss 1. And it's interesting because I was playing it just like, oh yeah, it's another puzzle game. Like all the innovative VR games are puzzle games essentially. And it's funny that even a game that when you on the outside looking in, you assume kind of has a lot of depth to its combat and platforming as well, still ends up going down that route.
Cool. All right, moving on from the lovely Quill. This past week also, it was revealed that Netflix, of all things, is getting into game streaming by about next year. But what hasn't been widely highlighted is that it looks like they're also getting into VR gaming. 2 stories broke on it. The first being the creator of Grey's Anatomy and Netflix's Bridgerton, Shonda Rhimes, and her company, Shondaland Media, which I love that name, will be expanding into VR. Zeena Land Productions. Netflix announced that the newly expanded partnership will give them opportunity to exclusively produce, stream, and distribute feature films, as well as potential gaming and virtual reality content. So they explicitly mention virtual reality. The second story is that Mike Verdu, I can't ever say his last name without saying it in that way, because that's just the way that it was created to be said like. Mike Verdu, VP of VR, who you might recognize from the Oculus Gaming showcases, is leaving to be the VP of game development at Netflix. This might seem like one big coincidence, or is it true that there is no such thing as a coincidence, Jamie?
It's a weird one, right? Because I don't think. First of all, there's layers in a process to getting towards virtual reality as a good part of a streaming service, because when you do game streaming, latency is an issue. We've seen varying performance with Stadia across the globe, and for some people it works well, for other people it doesn't work that well at all. And you can't have that with, whereas you can have buffering and lower streaming quality for movies, and that's a shame, but it's workable. You then bring that another level down with gaming of, you might have some delay in the controls, which is a really big problem. Not always, literally a game-breaking deal, but a big problem. If you then move it down to virtual reality, any latency whatsoever while you're using VR is a big deal. So it keeps moving down these tiers to the point where it's like, okay, now you really can't excuse any kind of latency or issues with this medium, otherwise it's just not going to work. And this is why we haven't really seen Facebook launch this kind of service yet, or anyone else. It's really interesting to see them make mention of VR. I wonder if they're talking about streaming VR movies, which is a much more accessible idea, I think, or a much more graspable idea in the near term. I don't necessarily know if Mike Verdu being picked for the gaming stuff, which in my mind seems to be ticking on Xbox Games Pass way more than it is, concerned with virtual reality right now. I think that's I do think that's a coincidence. At the end of the day, I gotta say, I was surprised to see that Mike Verdu had left Facebook to do this, because I actually tweeted earlier, I feel like being in charge of VR content and VR gaming at Facebook right now. Go for it. Oh, right, you're leaving. That's what you mean by one moment. Um, being in charge of VR content at Facebook right now, I'll turn to the camera. I feel like, isn't that like the most important and potentially powerful position you could have in the VR industry in 2021, right? Like you are almost single-handedly responsible for pushing forward and increasing sales of the most popular VR platform out there, the Quest 2. So I'm very interested that he left that role. I think it's a shame. I think Facebook's like kind of gaming creative vision needs direction, and I think it's a shame to see a leader part ways with them in the middle of trying to establish that kind of content plan that we've been seeing in the past couple of months of all these acquisitions and everything like that. But it's strange. What do you think a Netflix virtual reality? I don't know, like
Experience.
partnership. Experience would look like.
I think Black Mirror could be massive.
True.
Is it Black Mirror?
Yeah, Black Mirror is true.
Yeah. So Shonda, I feel like Shonda Rhimes and Shondaland, sounds like Sunderland, would probably go more towards the film or the kind of more no, she's done more like TV series, so
yeah,
it would have to be some kind of episodic thing, right?
The thing that makes me worry is that they're just talking about 360-degree movies again, and it's like no one. I think we're kind of done with that, aren't we? Like no one wants that kind of content. It's not been that exciting.
You say that, but think about all. Yeah, forget 360 movies. I'm not agreeing with that, but
okay.
Think about all the like Oscar-winning or Emmy-nominated sort of VR stuff, right?
Yeah, so like your Battle Scars and your Dear Henrys and your for sure, and there's a lot of potential in that. It's just I don't see where they start. Like it starts being a big draw for Netflix. Yeah, like I can see them saying VR, but really in their roadmap, all of those kinds of plans are still 5 to 10 years down the line, whereas the gaming stuff, which is what really the headline should be about, that's all what's coming in the next year, right? Because I can totally see them in the next year launching, we were saying this earlier, like launching a day one thing, just kind of like Amazon just quietly launched their game streaming service last summer. This summer or next summer, that you just see them quietly launch with like a handful of Assassin's Creed games, one or two big like tentpole titles that might get other people in, and maybe they acquire a few studios to build stuff their own. But I just don't really see VR fitting into it for a good couple of years yet. Like if that was at all possible, we'd be seeing that floated around more by other. We'd be seeing PlayStation Now VR, and we'd be seeing a service on Quest 2 that would stream PC VR content even if you don't have a PC, which would be huge. So
yeah, it's definitely an interesting one in terms of crap 360-degree videos. My first prediction, if they're going that route, my first prediction would be the fireplace. There's like several hours of just a fireplace.
Oh yeah.
It would be that, and it would be like the relaxation, category, and it'd just be a bunch of crap 360 videos like that, or they have like nature bits and bobs. That's going to be the first stuff that you're going to see.
And to that point, obviously there is the Netflix app in VR on most headsets.
Yeah.
And it could also just be, they're looking to expand that and bring that to more platforms as well. I don't necessarily know if it's on PSVR, but they might want to bring that to PSVR 2 and stuff, because as headsets get better resolution screens, that becomes a much more viable way to interact with the platform. So Paradise DK just mentions that Abduction, is free on the Epic Store right now, which is a good point. That's from the creators of Myst, and that has optional VR support. That came out a long time ago now. But yeah, if you have a PC and you want to check out a cool Myst-like adventure before the release of actual Myst on Steam VR, or actually no, that just came out a couple of weeks ago, didn't it? But yeah, that's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's gonna flop as much as Stadia or not, or if it's just gonna be completely like not highlighted at all, really.
I think the thing is, it can't flop as much as Stadia because the reports today were suggesting that it'll, this initial rollout is going to be a part of your pre-existing subscription with no price increase,
that's
right?
true.
It's then you have to imagine that is a soft launch for something a bit more ambitious down the line, where maybe they're hoping you'll pay an extra $10 a month to get access to, Assassin's Creed and everything like that, and that's where it might flop. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. One last comment just from me, not from the chat.
Sorry.
Is Shonda seems to be a big gun, right? Like a really, really valuable creator at Netflix. If they have directly mentioned virtual reality to do with her, I think they could come out with some real gems. Genuinely.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. It's just about how you interact with it and how you. Well, yeah, like are they going to be expecting us to put on quests and watch this stuff? Are they going to ship out headsets themselves? Like, it's
go back to the old cardboard days.
Oh God, please no, please don't do that to me again. I don't think I could deal with that.
Recycle old popcorn buckets, and you just get a bit of salt in your eye.
No.
Ew. Anyway,
Gross.
Moving on. Xbox boss Phil Spencer, don't worry guys, don't get too excited, just has once again shot down any hopes of Xbox VR in the near future, but hasn't ruled out Xbox software appearing on other headsets. So Spencer appeared in the latest episode of Kind of Funny Gamescast, saying he didn't have any plans, and that this is a little bit of a kick in the stomach, for bespoke accessories like VR or AR headsets in the near future. Just a quick bespoke accessories.
What?
That's a bit of an insult, isn't it?
What? Why? Isn't bespoke's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but accessories isn't when it comes to VR. I wouldn't say so.
Well,
accessories would be like Google Cardboard or something.
I think you could call I think actually
it's hardware. It's like
if you think of. Yeah, sure, but if you think of PSVR, I actually think bespoke accessory is a good way to describe something that isn't. It's not like the Vita or the PSP where it ended up becoming its own platform. It was very much like a Kinect of the PS4 era, if you know what I mean.
I don't know, that little phrase didn't sit well with me.
Triggered
bespoke
you.
Accessories. It triggered me. However, he has said that the best experience he's seen is the Quest 2, and that's due to its untethered nature. Going on to say, and I quote, so when I look at a scenario like that, I think of xCloud, I think of the Xbox Live community, and I think of other things of how could we bring content to a screen like that. Whether we do something like that through first party or third party partnerships is kind of a second step to what to do. Step to do. We think the game's la 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 la.
He said it very like it doesn't read well the way
it doesn't read very well at all. There, should have read that over. Jamie, could this be Xbox's easy way out of challenging PSVR 2? Just to put their content onto Quest 2.
Artful, yes. Me and Ian are different people. How dare you? How dare you, sir? He lives in Arkansas, Texas. No, it's not Texas. It's next to Texas. It's I don't. It was
wherever
a joke
the heck
I used to
it
have.
is,
It's an in joke
I think
that
Arkansas
I just realized
is the state, but
yeah, it was an in joke that's not going to work here. Anyway, getting back to it. Yeah, this. So we Xbox's history of saying no, we're not going to do VR for Xbox is long and well documented at this point. Like, it's nothing new that Phil Spencer would come out and say we're not really looking at that, even though you know that somewhere in a lab somewhere they are looking at that. Just they have to be because
they're mixing fluids from one vial to another. How can we make this work?
Explosions in the eyeballs. I mean, they have to be looking at it somewhere because, you know, Quest 2 is taking off. Sony's about to go another round with PSVR, and there's every chance that it suddenly turns into this mega hit that they absolutely have to have a response to. So there is stuff, you know, definitely happening. I was really interested in what he said about software and how they can support on other fronts, because obviously don't forget that Xbox now owns several studios that have made some of the best VR content. So you've got, you know, Ninja Theory, who did a VR version of Hellblade. You've got In Exile, who did Mage's Tale, and of course podcast staple Frostpoint. And then you've got like a couple of other studios as well that have done stuff, Double Fine and some others. So I don't see them. I don't see them like ever embracing and doing huge exclusives or huge VR exclusive games, but maybe we could get that kind of situation that we got with EA and Star Wars Squadrons, of when VR just definitely makes sense, it could end up appearing on some of those platforms, right? I think that would be a really cool way to go. I also, I think ultimately probably what he really means is that, you know, Xbox had an app for the Oculus Rift where if you had your Xbox One and you had a game in it, you could stream it to a virtual screen on your Rift. And I think the next step of that would be to have your Quest 2 and have xCloud, right? And have not just the idea of being able to stream and play a game wherever you are, but then, you know, stream that game to a giant virtual TV wherever you are, so you can have the big kind of cinematic experience wherever you want to sit. I think, you know, they've had this message of being platform agnostic for so long with things like Games Pass and where they want to put it. I think that makes perfect sense, and I think that is absolutely something we could see in the future. I don't necessarily know how successful it would be, because I think, first of all, that I don't think anyone used that Xbox app I was talking about. And when Oculus first started this whole kind of releasing headsets and services, essentially, you know, it had its own store of movies and everything like that just ended up going away because no one wanted to buy new versions of movies to watch on virtual, that they could only watch on virtual screens at the end of the day. So I don't know how successful it would be. I would definitely be interested in seeing them do it, and then also kind of hoping that, you know, whatever Double Fine is tinkering away on next, maybe there's a version of that for Quest 2 that works. It's similar in the way to, you know, Microsoft helped getting like Cuphead on PlayStation and Switch after it had been exclusive on Xbox and everything like that. And Minecraft, you know, even after that was bought by Microsoft, that ended up getting VR support on PSVR. So yeah, I think we'll continue to see stories like that of where it fits, it'll work out, and then I reckon we'll see xCloud expanded to headsets potentially in the future.
If, you know, Xbox content does expand out in the way that, you know, Spencer's kind of alluding to a bit there, I feel like I would respect Xbox's position a lot more, actually, in terms of VR, because, you know, I kind of feel like that steps away from the trend that we're going towards of exclusive titles, exclusive things for certain headsets. If it's just a kind of free-for-all, it's just more content, like more great content for everyone in VR, right? Apart from PSVR, sorry.
Well, but that's true, and it's interesting because so many of whenever Microsoft buys people, it then seems to interfere with some VR plans and often some PSVR plans as well. So, or not interfere with, but put at risk. But fortunately, they're good guys and don't cancel projects. So when they bought in Exile, the Mage's Tale still was yet to come out on PSVR, but they ended up carrying on with it. Microsoft weren't like, oh, no, you can't do that. And again, I don't think anyone actually expected PSVR support to come to Minecraft, and it ended up making its way there. Well past the Microsoft acquisition. And then, of course, famously, once they'd announced the Bethesda acquisition, the first release after it was announced the deal was completed was Doom VR, which was a PSVR exclusive, let alone not coming out Quest. And so it's very possible as well that, you know, they work to officially get Doom onto more headsets as well, and those other existing assets that make sense like that. You know, now they own Skyrim VR, and are they going to keep that maintained where it makes sense? Because they absolutely should. Like, I would love a PSVR 2 version of Skyrim VR. Are they going to look at that and say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense? So you're right. It's kind of this interesting benefit that almost that they're not making a headset, and yet they're kind of somewhat interested in sustaining the VR ecosystem in the ways that suit them, because it does mean that, yeah, maybe Skyrim VR can live again on different platforms in the future. Maybe Doom VFR can live again on different platforms in the future. Maybe because they've already done the work on Fallout 4. Well, and maybe, you know, like, this is complete speculation, but maybe there was already work started in VR on Starfield, that new Bethesda game, right? So maybe they're not going to cancel that. Maybe if you buy it on PC, there's a lot of value to Microsoft still just offering that VR support. So yeah, it's good to have. I know what you mean. It's good to have them in the game in some shape or form.
Cool. And finally, our last story is that Resolution Games, developer behind the fantastic games such as Demeo, Blast On, and Cookout, A Sandwich Tale, they just got $25 million in investment. Wow. That's probably the biggest investment figure that I've heard of for a single developer, right?
For gaming, for sure. I think that is definitely one of the biggest ones. And like, obviously, like some like enterprise focused, healthcare focused. Obviously, some of those people end up raising more because, you know, just that scene makes a lot more money, or that sector makes a lot more money. I'm really glad. I'm really happy to see this. Resolution kind of reminds me of, you know, how last week I think we were talking about End Dreams and Fract, and how we've really seen that developer grow from making stuff that at the start of, you know, the VR life cycle wasn't very inspired, and you thought, oh, the studio lacks vision. I think it's kind of the same thing with Resolution. Of the studio has always had vision to make, you know, kind of, first of all, to make kind of like some free to play stuff work, and those kinds of economics work. But it wasn't really until like Blast On, Cookout, and, you know, obviously most recently Demeo, that I think we started to see them land on experiences that are really going to stick. I love Acron. I think Acron's a lot of fun.
Acron was the first like spark of, oh, you guys have got like good ideas in there.
Yeah, but the thing is, Acron, I don't think really ended up getting the support it could have had, because at the end of the day, not enough people ended up buying it, which is totally fair enough. Like, why work on something people aren't playing? But Blast On, you know, they keep going with Blast On. They have put out some stuff for Cookout, and obviously they are promising that Demeo is going to have a long future ahead of it. So I'm really, you know, I'm happy to see this news. I'm looking forward to what comes next from them. Adam puts it right. They crank out fun 4-player co-op games rather quickly, and that's absolutely true. That is 100% what they do. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. I would like them to take a break. I don't necessarily need to know what they're doing right now. I think it would be cool to get a lot of Demeo updates in there before we see what's next. But
well, the interesting thing is that they straight up outlined that it's going to be used for new games, continuing game updates, and studio growth. So I don't think they're going to take a break. I think they're going to grow their studio. I think they're going to have, half of it dedicated to sustaining games and half of it creating new ones, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not as clean cut as that, but
it is that they are like ultimately looking for that business model. I mean, let's not forget that a couple of weeks ago, these were the first guys to say, we're going to have ads in our games. And obviously that went the way it ended up going. But they are on the lookout for that VR model that is going to, propel them into the mega bucks straight away. And so I think you're right that games as a service is one of those ideas for them that they want to hit on the ideas that people really connect with. And that's when they want to, and then they want those to like thrive and keep building up those communities and hopefully build something that is, that constant moneymaker, like in the vein of a Fortnite or a Overwatch or whatever, in the future.
I kind of predict that the next game might be like a filler game, like a sports game.
I mean, filler in terms of for us and the hardcore and what they want, right? Like Demio is really Demio and maybe Blaston were really kind of the first games they made that do actually speak to that, to more our kind of sensibilities, right? Whereas the rest of it is all very casual and stuff. So when you say filler, I'm sure they still are hoping to make a whole bunch of money with, whatever comes next, if it is like some sort of
of course. It's like what you were saying, like last week or whenever it was. When you make the sports game, like when you really do well, when people always go to that. When I say filler, it's here is a game, an idea there for you. You've got to make it just work in VR and make it look nice.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by filler, rather than creating a whole new game and new rules and things like that.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean that's what Cookout was, right? It was let's be the Overcooked of VR. It's what Bait is. It's let's do VR fishing, and then they've got stuff like Acron that is let's make up whole new ideas and see how that communicates. So they do it. Yeah, they do a really good mix of stuff. Blaston.
The boy. Blaston.
I'm excited to see what comes from them. You're right. We probably will hear what it is very soon, and I think you're right that we probably won't be getting that kind of hardcore Demio experience out of them. Because you remember when they announced Demio, the messaging around that was like, we've been working on lots of games for lots of years, and this is the one that we've been working on for a long time that we really wanted to get right. So I think
it's definitely going to be their flagship.
Yeah, I feel like we'll get a good couple of years of support out of Demio before they start talking about potential Demio 2 as well. So, yeah.
So Paradise DK said, Resolution are amazing developers. Agreed. I just hope that Adgate is a bit of a wake-up call that people hate/loathe adverts. Very interesting. If they do a filler sports one, I don't think people will be as against it if they did like. Well, would they make it like you see in sports games, the banners and so on?
Would they make it free? Right, like that's the thing. It's like
that is the main thing. That is the main thing. Make it free.
Yeah, they might be looking at this and saying, okay, well, what we've heard is that it can't work in Blaston because we charged for Blaston, so that's a no-go now. But maybe that means our next game, maybe it makes way more sense to make that free and trial out what's going to happen with the ads on that platform without the kind of the backlash, hopefully, and see how it goes there, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Because apologies for my lack of knowledge, but the CEO of Resolution Games is pretty well knowledged in free-to-play games, right?
A learned man. Tommy Palmer, he hails from Candy Crush. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of vibe.
He would understand in a good way. I think in a good way, he would understand ads in games, right? I feel.
Yeah, I mean, people would. I guess people would argue against you that if that were the case, then why did the blast on incident, why did that happen? But
I feel like that was a mix of Facebook as well.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, they got dragged into that conversation because of the name of the company involved. But I don't know. We'll see. It was, I wouldn't expect them to completely stray away from this kind of advertising, because of the blast on incident. I'm going to make that sound like it appears somewhere on some sort of chronological timeline. 1956. The blast on incident. Like in a Metal Gear Solid timeline. Devastation everywhere. I think we'll see them mess around with more of these kind of controversial monetization schemes, and hopefully land on something that works for both them and audiences.
True that. We're going to move on from news now. Some of you guys are coming in on that ad conversation. I feel like we can have an ad conversation every single week. Some people are totally against it. Some people saying, yeah, within sports games, on banners, ads in VR are not going to just pop up, said Big Show. Paradise DK said blast on, blast off. Yeah, that's obviously an ongoing thing. We... Just a little FYI, we have got a video of Andrew Bosworth, responding to the ad gate. I don't feel like he really hit the right notes in his response. There were very, backlashy comments on that as well.
I don't think you have to kind of be. I think Boz is very good at being humble. And having an appearance of being humble.
An appearance, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. When you have a response that was that minute and a half of talking, but then just kind of get in that last line about it being too much at the end, it's like, okay, I understand exactly what you're saying, but too much. And it's like, you almost had it there, Boz, but that line isn't really the kind of line that is going to sit well with the people that disagreed with you in the first place. It's not. It's kind of you're talking to your audience, and and unless you're getting to the point where there's really, really horrid abuse going on to individuals and people's safety and stuff is getting and happiness and privacy is being put at risk. It's not really for you to say too much, if you know what I mean. Like, obviously, if we were talking about some sort of like ethical issue and people were being racist and disgusting and stuff like that, then yeah, you have to tell an audience that that's too much and that there's no place for it in the audience. But we're talking about people being very unhappy with paying for a product and then being subjected to advertising
the company's ethics
years later. Yeah, we're talking about the company's ethics, and people are going to get riled up and passionate about that. Because it's it's a very hot topic right now, and so it's not really
them on the wrist.
Yeah, it's not really for you to say what's too much. We're not all your students, and you're not our teacher. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's totally it. And if you're gonna make a response like that, don't make out like you're the hip cool guy at Facebook and you listen and I do Instagram lives and I answer people's personal questions, when you're just going to have a company response like that and tell them no, the company is right, you are wrong. That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely a delicate issue in terms of you will. There are going to be people out there that do things that are extreme, but to address the wider audience that probably talked about the issue in very respectable, if passionate grounds. Yeah, that's not really for you to weigh in on.
Sorry, Silver just said, "Good point, James."
James from up in the.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
not me.
I'm talking about you. Good point, James. Cool. All right. Well, you can check out all of those stories, including the ad stuff, over at UploadVR.com. Now we are going to move on to A Township Tale impressions. The reason why it's not a review, seeing as it's out today on Quest, is because Jamie doesn't quite feel we're ready for a review of it.
I don't think we're anywhere near ready for a review of Township, right? Yeah, just yet.
I mean, I thought you were going to say, no, that's not what I'm going to say. I was like, oh no.
No, so me and you I would say me and you have probably played, maybe between us, and then I've played a bit extra on top of this. Maybe you and me have put in like 3 hours into it together or something, maybe.
Yeah. Between, you know, sitting down because we've got COVID and putting a headset back on.
Yeah. And Wade Imoas, Township Tale, someone said Steam VR earlier. What they mean is that you can go on PC to the Township Tale website and download it for PC, and it will run using Steam VR. It's not actually on Steam, but it is on PC, and you can get it for free on PC. But yeah, the big thing this week is that it's out officially on Quest today as well. And I've been really enjoying it. It's such an incredibly in-depth experience, and there's something that I'm going to put a little post live today, just outlining a few initial thoughts. It's going to be very, very short, but there's that, and it's got a wiki, which not many VR games have a wiki. It has a very in-depth fan-run wiki, and it's also got so many YouTube tutorials on how to do every individual bit of the game. Because in A Township Tale, basically, you build a town, and then you fill roles within that town. So you can be a warrior, or you could be a chef, or you could be you work in a blacksmith. And each of those has very intricate mechanics to it. So let's say you're chiseling something. Let's say you want to chisel a handle to then fit to a piece of metal or something like that, right? First of all, you've got to have the recipe for the handle, which means you take a book and you kind of rip the recipe page out and place it in the handle, which the game doesn't tell you how to do, and I struggled with for ages. Then when it comes to the chiseling, the recipe might suggest like, oh yeah, you need a hammer and you need a chisel and you need to do it officially, but you could actually just get a rock, get a stick, put them together for a makeshift hammer, get a piece of flint, use it as a makeshift chisel as well. And the game doesn't always do a great job of explaining those things. But then when you're chiseling, you're not just kind of doing the kind of VR thing of, oh well, I'll just act it out a little bit and it'll appear. No, you have to kind of, it will guide you through like the specific bits you want to hit, and then you have to hit it just right. Or if you're hammering a nail, you have to hit it at the right angle, or it's going to go off and break. So it's being incredibly ambitious and incredibly intricate in its interactions, in a way that's kind of almost a little bit to its detriment right now, because with a lack of haptic feedback and a lack of being able to feel the weight of a controller in hand, it's actually hard to nail down the process of how to make things in the game. But in a sense, it's kind of, I think you'd agree with this, it's kind of future-proofing itself, right? Like at some point, we're going to have a controller that can simulate weight. At some point, we're going to have a controller that can simulate haptics and stopping you. And at that point, half the VR games that have released so far aren't going to be able to update because they just haven't been designed for that kind of interaction in the future. Whereas this is entirely planning for those steps. It's essentially planning to be around as long as VR's around, which is really, really cool, really, really smart. It just means right now there's some awkwardness to it. But I think the Quest version is a really interesting thing, because we so often see Quest games, and Facebook has this real strict regimen on making sure that Quest games are released on the store and are completely finished. They have, first of all, they say most of the time they don't allow early access releases, even though we've seen Onward is still in early access on Steam, and I think this is still in early access, and it very much is an early access release. But then also performance-wise, it has to be hitting like either like 72 or 90 frames per second. And this actually has some like stuttering that I haven't seen in any other release.
I haven't had that whatsoever. You kept having it. I never got any stuttering.
And so I would have I would have not mentioned it, but Harry's saying that he's been having that stuttering as well, and it kind of has to be there, I think, right? Because there's so many items in the world to deal with, like easily more than anything else on Quest. It's easy, let's just put it out there. It's easily the most ambitious Quest game, I think, in terms of
it's actually, open world.
It's actually, yeah, exactly. It's actually open world, and then at any one time, you could litter the ground with like 20 rocks, 20 pieces of wood, and I think if you did all of that, for sure, your quest would be like, no, I am not dealing with this. See you later. So you actually kind of have to maintain the town a bit, and there's some very grievous pop-in, as we've both seen, because there has to be, and so that kind of plays into the same point of saying, well, it's playing to a future where we do have haptics and weight in our controllers. It's also just here now because it wants to be ready for when Quest 3 comes out, right? And it can do a bunch more stuff on Quest 3 and Quest 4 and Quest Pro and whatever happens in the future.
FYI, Artful said, Jamie, they applied a patch today that is supposed to have fixed the stuttering.
Great. All right, cool. Well, I'll have to jump in and check that out because we haven't managed to get into it today, but I do want to get back to building my blacksmith. And but tell me what you think about it, because I've been quite encouraged by how much you want to play it and stuff actually so far.
Okay, so that's actually quite a hurtful comment, because I give up on games all the time.
Yeah, well, that's
and it's
true,
like, oh my god, you haven't given up. Yeah, no, it's incredibly annoying for me. So, as someone who gives up on games quite easily, I got incredibly frustrated. But the great thing is that you can do the tutorial with someone else. So we did the tutorial together, and when I started raging over like not being able to like properly hammer in the nails and things like that, Jamie could come in and take over and be like, no, do it like this, and
which is so
that
cool.
helped me a lot, actually. Yeah. That we could take turns, and it's like, oh my god, like for example, we were trying to make a rock bridge, and you're like, yeah, I got a ton of these like stones. Tried to put it in, but it wasn't accepting it, and you're like, why isn't it accepting it? And then I figured out, you've got stones, and then you've got sandstone, and it's just like a bit more beige than the stones. You got annoyed with that, but then I was like, no, I've got a few stones here, let's get on with it, and let's pair up and gather all these stones and avoid the sandstones. And you probably wouldn't have figured that out for a long while, right?
Yeah, for sure, because it was when it comes to just the difference of color palette, you never know if it's just your eyes or it's actually something in the
headset game. Or
yeah, exactly. So that is and that's a really cool point. Like the sharing and collaboration is really interesting. I think also what's really interesting is we're talking about playing the first few hours of the game and how little we've seen, but really there kind of almost is a full game's worth of content in that kind of learning what happens in the town and knowing what to build. It's just then there's going to be so much more to the game when we get into this kind of phase where we've got these massive backpacks.
Oh my god, yeah, I didn't
and
even
different
notice
items.
That.
Yeah, and everything going on down here.
Is that a gun? No, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either. So there's just so much more to it, which is why I'm saying, we're not even close to ready to being able to put a final stamp on it. But I'm encouraged. I think it's already got like over 300 reviews on Quest or something like that, and it's technically not even out, and it only technically literally just released a minute ago. So it's incredibly ambitious. I think we're going to be talking about this game for a long time to come. I think this is going to become one of the more popular Quest releases pretty quickly, actually. And I'm hoping to deliver like kind of a review. I would imagine look for late July or maybe early August for some sort of review at the end of the day, because I think
you'd have to put in like
a lot more.
100 hours, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, probably. It's an ambitious one, but it's incredible. It's incredible what they're pulling off on Quest in terms of the physics, in terms of the interactions. I am amazed it's running on Quest. at all, even with the problems that I've encountered before this patch.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to plug in.
You look like you got a crick in the neck.
No, my battery's on 8%, but I've been charging through the head strap with the battery, and it's just been going down like a percentage per, I don't know, half hour or something.
Well,
anyway.
we're at an hour, and unless there's anything else you want to add to Township, we can.
No, yeah, it's just I'm looking forward to what else is going to be added on the roadmap. Artful said that next up is house building, which is interesting because you can populate the area more. How is that going to work with quests? That's going to be very interesting.
Get much closer to Animal Crossing for you.
Yeah. Is it going to treat it as individual blocks which will exist in the world, which will definitely be difficult for the quest to manage, or is it going to be the whole thing of putting the items into a box and then one item, i.e. the house, appears? It's stuff like that of how are they going to move forward from there.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta say, like, I'm playing something I feel like I'm going to end up loving. I'm just not at the bit where you're meant to really love and enjoy it yet. And it's a game to understand. It's not a campaign to run through and then think, oh, how do I feel about that? It's a game with many, many different complex, sprawling jobs and tasks and activities and combat and exploration. The only part of that me and you have really done so far is going down into the mines and having. I would say we had
terrifying.
Yeah, we had a fun time getting a bit spooked out together, right? Like fighting some people, struggling with the kind of limited amount of time you get with a torch. We need to build lamps so that we can stay down there with it working indefinitely. But it's so cool, and there's so much potential to it. It's a really ambitious quest game. I don't know. I might come down and say that it was probably maybe too much for the quest. So I don't know. We'll find out later on. But yeah, look for more coverage and impressions going forward in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Not next week.
I think it would definitely be better if we had like 6 other people.
Yeah, we can try that. We can
go faster.
We can get Hamilton in. And Harry.
Alexander Hamilton. Cool. Yeah, that just about wraps it up for this week. FYI.
Good show.
Good show.
Shake hands.
There we go.
Yes, very good, very good.
Get your COVID hands off of me.
I've got COVID. Virtually, socially distanced. It's okay. Achoo. No.
Oh, hey, Daniel. Thank you so much for the super chat. Great show as always. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Daniel. You so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone else. Artful, Big Show, Catty Am, Adam Hartzell, all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining us this week. FYI, Fract is our upload access title of the month, which means we're going, deep diving into the title, getting exclusive content from End Dreams. Go check out everything over at UploadVR.com, as well as, our impressions on A Township Tale and all of the stories that we've mentioned today. Have we got another super chat in there?
Super chat.
Big Show, $5. Thank you so much. Nothing has to be said about that. Thank you. Cheers. Rest well, get better. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
If you check out my Twitter, you'll see the state that he was in before the show. Stood in the doorway with the duvet just over him as a cloak. In his
I have had a pretty raspy voice this podcast, I would like to think. Yeah.
Cool.
But that's the magic of this studio.
It is.
Safely bringing the word of the gospel of Jamie to you with no risk. Well, excellent work, Heaney. Well done.
Yes, thank you, Heaney. All right, cool. We're going to head off now. You guys have a lovely rest of your Thursday, Friday, and weekend. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye.
Bye, team.